I die every time I boot up Skype. Welcome to episode 103. That's weird to say. There will be expletives. 102 more than you may have asked for. But what's our motto, Ron?
Overpromise, underdeliver.
Goddamn right it is.
And we do it very well.
We do. We are still recovering from E3 2017. So there were some news that I have included in this week's episode. They're a little bit old, but there was so much shit over the last few days that primarily it's just kind of like hot button news items. But I did want to start out today, since we didn't get to talk about it during E3, I did want to say, just because of how important I think his career was for us personally, as Batman fans, we needed to say a few words commemorating the passing of Adam West. He was 88. By all accounts, he died peacefully, surrounded by friends and loved ones. So that's horrible. You hate to see someone go, but if you got to go, it sounds like he went as peacefully as possible. But yeah, why don't you start us off, because you are more specifically with Batman 66. You're more intertwined with it than I am.
I wasn't like a diehard fan or anything, but Batman 66 is the reason I had ever heard of Batman. So when I was 3.5 and Batman 89 came out, what I heard was Batman, and I had to go see it. And Batman 89 was what instilled for me the love that I have for Batman, and along came BTAS and all that. But the first instance I had ever heard of Batman was Adam West and Burt Ward, and they introduced me to. I mean, I was semi-familiar with the villain of the movie and everything, just because I was a 3-year-old watching Batman, 2- and 3-year-old watching Batman. So yeah. I don't know. Adam West it's sad because the thing he's most famous for kind of train wrecked his career. Like he could not get hired.
Yeah, I was so happy that he ended up having such a great run on Family Guy.
Yes.
Because it not only let him, be approachable from a different generation, because, there's a whole ton of, kids that, that know him as the mayor on Family Guy that might not even exactly know where he comes from, like what role, made him famous. And he's so fucking great in that show, in that role.
I know.
And it just shows that, like, he became typecasted as Batman, but it wasn't for like a lack of talent or anything. The guy was a genius.
The guy was a genius.
He was too good at that role. Like it's one of those, things where he was so fucking great at it that it happens a lot of the time with actors. It's like just like you and I talk about Jesse Pinkman.
Yes.
He crushed that role too much to where it will kind of like haunt his career now.
Pretty much.
But yeah, just listening to him on any episode of Family Guy, like his delivery, even in his like 80s,
Oh my God, I'm a tomato.
His delivery, even into his 80s, was always perfect.
Yes. Yes, I know it's probably the thing he didn't necessarily want to be remembered as, but I will always remember him as the first Batman I ever encountered. But yeah, I was pretty sad to hear him go.
See, I was never really that into Batman 66 specifically, but I come at it from a different angle too, in that he's important for me becoming a Batman fan, because my dad grew up like right in the middle of kind of the Batman mania, and Batman 66 was what made him a Batman fan. And what made me a fan is my dad being into it, because my dad grew up with the 66 show. Mm-hmm. He got to the point to where, he got to see the Tim Burton movies and everything. And I was born in 91, so I was a little bit after Batman 89. But because of Batman 66 making my dad such a big fan of the property, I got sat down in front of the TV watching the first Burton movie, watching Batman Returns when I was a couple of years older, where I could, watch it. And then most importantly, pop me down in front of Batman the Animated Series. So it's like my whole fandom, even though I didn't watch it specifically, roots back in Adam West, portrayal as Batman.
And the thing is, I'm sure Batman 89 would have happened eventually, but I think it would have been later than 89 if not for Batman 66 and the popularity of that show. And that was pretty much all Adam West.
I don't know who said it, but someone on Twitter, I believe it was on Twitter, they said it was Adam West and everyone involved in the Batman 66 that made Batman no longer a comic book superhero, that made him a pop culture icon. That is something I firmly believe in too.
So, yeah. So in the way I always looked at it was no Batman 66, you don't get Batman 89. If you don't get Batman 89 and Returns, you don't get BTAS. So, because those were heavily based on Batman 89, they were just much better.
Right.
So, yeah, I like everything that you know and love as a Batman fan, you can trace directly back to Adam West.
I highly recommend anyone who didn't. Right. So great. I have seen the movie multiple times, and I fucking love that movie.
Sometimes you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Yeah. I encourage anyone who hasn't seen them to Google the thing they did in LA where they put the bat signal up on the side of the building with like a rest in peace message. It was so beautifully done. I loved the whole thing. But yes, he will be missed. We did lose an icon.
Yes.
And big kudos as well to someone you and I follow from Hollywood Babylon, Ralph Garman, for he was a childhood fan who ended up actually becoming friends with him personally, and was the driving force behind, along with Adam West's family, of getting him his Walk of Fame star, which did you also see the image where people were putting down flowers and someone had put down like a domino mask from one of their kids' costumes on the star, and it just like makes your heart melt just looking at it. So yeah, I encourage anyone to go and look at all the images. But yes, Adam West will be missed
very much.
Let's get started. We're gonna basically be talking about Spidey for a while, so buckle in.
Nothing wrong with that.
This whole show is going to be Spider-Man and Han Solo. I'm basically telling you that much right now. So, Sony's upcoming Venom film starring Tom Hardy. We reported on that a couple of weeks back. It might have even been the last one before E3. They are beginning pre-production on it. And in a profile from Sony CEO Tom Rothman that was done by The Hollywood Reporter, he kind of casually mentioned that, Carnage is going to be the movie's antagonist. What is your initial reaction?
Mixed, honestly. Like, it makes sense because if you're going to have a villain as your protagonist, who the hell are you going to have as your antagonist? And that makes a lot of sense because Venom and Carnage have had a lot of back and forth before they teamed up and everything. The downside that I see is we've gotten a lot of mixed things back and forth if they're going to be technically part of the MCU or not, and that's where I wanted to see Carnage. You wanted to see him in a Spidey movie more so than a Venom movie? Yes. I wanted to see Venom and Carnage in a Spider-Man movie. I'm going to reiterate Homecoming 2 or 3. I'm going to reiterate, I love the director. I believe it was Ruben Fleischer, whoever directed Zombieland. Mm-hmm. I love Tom Hardy, obviously. I just don't envy them having to write that film because personally, I wouldn't know where to begin writing that type of movie. I think it is an incredibly difficult task making him kind of be in the MCU, but not really. Like, I think I think Sony is I think they approached specifically Spider-Man with the MCU brilliantly, but where they're going from the success of Civil War and Tom Holland's performance in that, where they're trying to kind of have their cake and eat it too, I think they're kind of shooting themselves in the foot. Because if I were them, I would sign over everything at their disposal, take a step back, and just count all the checks. Why is Sony still trying? They're adding more work to themselves when either way they're going to be counting the checks. So just get out of the fucking way. Because if you just sign over everyone over to Marvel, you don't even have to officially sign them over. Just do what you do with Spider-Man. Yeah.
Let the MCU guys tackle Carnage and Venom and all these guys when they get around to it while they develop Spider-Man. It doesn't like they're trying to crowbar because fucking everyone is. They're trying to make a Spider-Man cinematic universe, which doesn't work without Spider-Man, you know?
Right. Which, yeah. I hadn't had a chance to look ahead in the notes. Did you have the Craven thing?
I didn't include it. It's a bit of a tie-in with this story and the next one, so we can go ahead and talk about it. They are also, since it's so much a rumor, I didn't think to include it. They are spitballing the ideas of a spin-off Craven movie and a spin-off Mysterio movie. If it's difficult enough to make a Venom movie when Venom has actually had comic runs as a leading character,
dude,
how the fuck would
Venom?
you make...
If it was hard enough for them to make Spider-Man movies,
That's actually really true too.
I mean, how the fuck are you gonna go about making movies about his villains? That is not even in.
What they had talked about, what they're trying to do, which they don't really like. Okay, you know how the Avengers was set up, all of them individually, and then they combine them.
Yes,
they're trying to do the villain rendition of that with Sinister Six. They're trying to establish them individually, but
they started to try to do that with Amazing Spider-Man 2. You had all of the lead-ins.
Even Drew Goddard, that's right, that's the writer's name. It was the Martian.
Yes.
He was attached to do the Sinister Six movie. I actually think, like, theoretically, that could be cool in better hands. But just like you said, if they have shown a difficult time making Spidey movies, how the hell are you going to make a solo Mysterio movie?
I don't
Mysterio
understand.
would be kind of hard to pull off properly as a villain role in a Spider-Man movie, which is spearheaded by the President of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
How the fuck do you fill 90 or 100 minutes of screen time that is with Mysterio or Craven as the driving force? It makes no fucking sense.
It makes no sense to me at all.
That's why I didn't even bother. I knew that story.
Yeah.
I didn't even bother to fully include it, but I think it's interesting to think about.
See, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. I know it's rumor, it's conjecture, but I mean, at this point, I'm willing to believe it.
It further cements the fact that they have no idea what the fuck they're doing right now.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know why they won't just back out of the way and count the money that is already
They're literally in their own way.
Yeah. On the heels of that, we got a little bit more confirmation, but not fully. So the running theory and the way that it's been presented is that Tom Hardy's Venom, the other one that makes no goddamn sense to me, it makes a little bit more sense than Craven and Mysterio, but they're really pushing hard the idea of a Silver Sable and Black Cat movie.
Yeah.
Which it makes more sense when you think about the state of Hollywood with female leads, and those characters aren't specifically villains. So you can kind of like they fall a little bit more in the Venom camp than
I've always said Black Cat. Why not?
I love Black Cat. Yeah.
Because I always thought that should have been Sony's go-to if they wanted to jump on the bandwagon, because they should have the rights.
Yeah, they do.
Since they have Spider-Man.
Yeah, Felicia Hardy's part of it. But the running theory was that Venom and Silver and Black, they would be produced by Sony, and even though Spider-Man technically is in the MCU, everything else they do would be part of their own pocket universe, essentially. Which makes no fucking sense, because how do you have a connected Spider-Man universe without Spider-Man? Well, in an interview between with the featured Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal, Pascal said, well, those movies will all take place in the world that we're now creating for Peter Parker. They'll all be adjuncts to it. They may be in different locations, but it will still all be in the same world. They will all be connected to each other as well.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
First of all, anyone who hasn't seen said Kevin Feige, YouTube that shit immediately, because all you have to do is put a slow zoom with sound of silence, and you'll make me crack up laughing. Apparently, that's like a direct line to my funny bone.
I loved it.
But even in their own statement, I
still have it in my head.
Everyone pause, go watch, seek it out, please, and then come back. So even in her own statement, they'll all be adjuncts to it, but they will be connected. That doesn't mean the same fucking thing.
No.
I don't think
that's contradictory.
I don't even think Sony understands what they're doing right now, even though all of these movies are like on the docket.
Yes. I think they've made clear that they don't understand. If you want to do a Sinister Six movie, just sit back and count your money until the MCU is done introducing everybody, and then either make your own movie or be like, hey, you want to make this for us? And then sit back and light your cigar with a $100 bill.
It's like they don't even understand that they just tried this shit within the last 5 years, and it all blew up in their faces. But they have their partnership with Marvel. Well, Spider-Man has never been more
Suicide
popular.
Squad didn't help that. They're like, hey, we have villains.
Right. And it was successful.
Yes.
But I don't know. It's frustrating. Because in a perfect world, the Sinister Six movie could be actually pretty cool. You know,
it could be, but do you have any interest? Or would you rather just see Spider-Man fighting them? Like, who are they fighting?
You can almost... Okay, since they basically will have Spidey in them, that's what this is, what this article was kind of getting at, and what she was saying, basically, without confirming it officially, is that they are going to be in the same universe because it makes no fucking sense otherwise. I like the idea, just as like an experiment, of having an Avengers type movie where the team is the bad guys, and then like the Loki presence is just Spider-Man who pops in every now and then. That could be really cool if you handle it right.
Right.
But that's the question, is they're more than likely not going to handle it right, because they couldn't even handle Spider-Man 3, which had multiple villains and Spidey with the main guy in it, so who fucking knows. At this rate, I am playing all of this, I'm just taking it all with a big grain of salt. I will believe it when it is on a poster at Cinemark.
No, will never happen.
And yeah.
This is never going to happen.
A Spider-Man film that actually will happen for sure, because it's going to make a shit ton of fucking money because who all is involved in it, is the animated movie that is starring Miles Morales instead of Peter Parker. It was reported earlier this year that they had casted, let's see, I'm butchering his name, I'm sure, Shamik Moore as Miles Morales, and Liev Schreiber, who people will recognize as Sabretooth from X-Men Origins Wolverine. He's currently the lead guy in Ray Donovan. He's the unnamed villain of it. They also bolstered the cast this week by adding Brian Tyree Henry from Atlanta, and more notably, Mahershala Ali. So they pulled Cottonmouth from Luke Cage, who, if people are unaware, just is fresh off an Academy Award win for Moonlight. So that's a huge fucking get for this movie. Honestly, this cast is going to probably end up being better than what their live action ones will be at certain instances, because like God knows who they end up casting for all their other spinoffs and stuff they want. Because it's kind of cool, because I think this is genius, the Miles Morales thing. For animation, because this is a clever have your cake and eat it too, because you have Tom Holland wrapping up the live action side of stuff while you can have an animated Miles Morales, and they can even be in the same universe. It does.
I love that Spider-Man is my favorite Marvel character, period. I love we're getting back into Spider-Man mania like we did back when the William Dafoe one came out with Sony.
Yeah.
Everything was Spider-Man everywhere, and I loved it.
Yeah, and at least the MCU does have some form of control. Mahershala Ali will be playing Miles' uncle, Aaron Davis. And Henry from Atlanta, he will be playing Miles' father in the movie. I'm really excited for that animated movie. It's set for December of 2018. Written by Phil Lord and Christopher Miller.
I saw that, yeah.
Which, if any people were fucking born to write the smartassery of a Spider-Man movie, even if it's Miles Morales isn't quite as much of a talker as Peter Parker is, but he is still a smartass. I think it'll be great. So that's something that Phil Lord and Christopher Miller are attached to. Let's talk about the elephant in the fucking room, about they're not attached to anymore. I have an entire fucking page of goddamn Han Solo notes. This is unprecedented how fucking batshit this news is, dude. So,
all right, slap it to me.
Yeah. So, how much have you been following of Lord Miller being fired from the Han Solo project?
I have been following it on and off. I've been following it more today. When it first happened, there was so much shit flying and so much rumor and everything. I kind of laid off until today.
All right, I'm going to try to lay all this out, and then we will talk about what we think about it. I'm going to first start off with the official statements. This is Kathleen Kennedy, the Lucasfilm president who oversees Indiana Jones, Star Wars, every fucking thing under that brand at Disney now. She's essentially the Kevin Feige of Lucasfilm. That's the way I would consider it.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Phil Lord and Christopher Miller are talented filmmakers who have assembled an incredible cast and crew, but it's become clear that we had different creative visions on this film, and we decided to part ways. A new director will be announced soon. This is what Lord Miller had to say. Unfortunately, our vision and process weren't aligned with our partners on this project. We normally aren't fans of the phrase creative differences, but for once this cliche is true. We are really proud of the amazing and world-class work of our cast and crew. Now, an inside source is claiming a less than polite split behind closed doors.
So, first, let me just say, I have issues with anonymous inside sources a lot of the time. Until I hear, I don't fully believe what I hear until I hear something official from somebody sticking their neck out. I
actually believe the sources, and we'll get into my views on it once I kind of lay it out. So the anonymous source is speaking to another thing that adds credence to it. It's Variety. Mm-hmm. Variety it's not like TMZ spouting out shit, you know?
Right.
So Variety reported that the film had trouble right from the get-go and that the directors were actually fired. It was a culture clash from day one, the source said. She didn't even like the way they folded their socks. It's a very specific quote. That's another thing that adds credence to it to me. It's not like they didn't go over the top with their statements. While it appeared that Disney sought out the Lego Movie and 21 Jump Street directors for their signature voices, Lord Miller looked like were never really granted the creative license they thought they would have during the filming. Also, according to Variety's report, the directors were at odds with longtime Star Wars contributor Lawrence Kasdan, who wrote The Empire Strikes Back, and he actually goes back with Kathleen Kennedy even to Indiana Jones. He wrote Indiana Jones. I know he wrote Raiders. I can't remember if he wrote Temple of Doom or Last Crusade. He also wrote The Force Awakens most recently with them. Kathy, her team, and Larry Kasdan have been doing it their way for a very long time. They know how the cheese is made, and that's how they want it made, the source explained. It became a very polarizing set. So at that point, we're going to jump in. So what were you going to be talking about in relations to the source? Did you have anything else you wanted to add in that regard?
No, just in general, when there's an unnamed random inside source, I'm usually a bit skeptical. But
I agree, but here's the thing.
Okay.
If this news about them being fired had happened in pre-production, I would call all the drama bullshit. This doesn't happen. This is unprecedented at this scale because here's the thing. I went back and researched exactly when they signed on to this project. Lord and Miller were announced July 7th of 2015. They had been working on this movie for almost 2 years and were just now citing creative differences. That doesn't happen. That happens in pre-production. You know when you get into the fucking room, or at least you should, who you're working with, and that is why creative differences are cited in pre-production. Something happened, and they fucking hate each other for this to happen. That's the only thing I can come up with. There is a genuine beef behind the scenes that, creatively they might have differences, but there has to be a beef for them to be fired at this stage in the game. So, you and I had often theorized that the studio was probably very hands-on, which is sometimes a bad thing. Here's my question. Almost always a bad thing. Why go out of your way to hire directors for their signature directing style and then just keep interfering? That is a thing that I side 100, even though we don't have the exact full story at this stage in time, I side 150% with Lord and Miller. This is fucking ridiculous.
There's something else that's not in your notes that I read in the Variety story, because it was in the same story with the didn't even like the way they folded their socks. When that gets like hashed out, like they didn't like this, they didn't like that, they didn't like this. One of the things that kind of surprised me was she didn't even like the way they interacted with cast and crew. What the hell does that mean?
So
that they were too much like Kevin Smith?
What
I doubt that I've never heard anyone say that they're assholes. So
everyone loves these guys on record.
Is it that they're too much like Kevin Smith with all right guys, thing. Yay?
What has been mentioned is that, and this goes right back to what we were talking about just a second ago too. What it's been theorized, or from unnamed sources saying this, kind of paraphrasing, what they like to do given their background is they come at movie making from their background in TV, where they improv a lot. They like what they were referring to was letting actors go off script. Kathleen Kennedy and Lawrence Kasdan have been writing movies since the late 70s, and that's not the way Hollywood worked back then. So that's how they're kind of going about these new Star Wars movies, is they're going about it this like old school way, which in a nutshell, I don't really have an issue with. You know, that's their prerogative. They're in a position where they can make decisions. That's whatever.
Don't hire people for their signature style.
Don't fucking hire people with a background in fucking improv TV whose movie catalog... So the thing that they didn't like about them also going off script was when you improvise, that obviously leads to more comedy.
Yes.
Let's look at their fucking IMDb page.
Right.
21 and 22 Jump Street, the Lego Movie, and Clyde with a Chance of Fucking Meatballs. There is a through line of fucking comedic background there. That is the entire reason they got them. And to me, that is why they would be perfect for a Han Solo and Lando movie, because they're very sarcastic, smart-ass characters.
Right.
That is one of the reasons I'm on record previously, because of everyone attached to this project, specifically Lord Miller directing. This is like my most anticipated. This was my most anticipated movie the next couple of years, because I loved all the actors. I loved the writing team. I loved the directors. And that just got completely fucking torpedoed by this whole thing. Because to me, this is
70% chance that the movie just goes off a cliff. 5 to 10% chance the movie never even happens. I'm going to say.
It's going to happen. Whether it is a goddamn train wreck, that is the thing that I think could potentially happen. Because like, I think this is complete horseshit on the side of Lucasfilm, because we give Warner Brothers shit all the time about having these directors come in and walk out. At least they're smart enough to have it happen in pre-production.
Right.
They didn't, because when I alluded to earlier, okay, they got fucking announced as the directors in July of 2015, right?
Yeah.
They were in pre-production for literally a year and a half. They started filming in January of this year. They were in pre-production for a year and a half. You're going to fire your directors 5 months into filming? Are you fucking kidding me? And they have a history of doing this as well, because on Rogue One, when they went about doing their reshoot process, it was more amiable than this has been, because Gareth Edwards still kept his director's credit, but they completely changed the entire, basically, third act and reshoots with a new guy writing and directing it, Tony Gilroy. So pretty much what happened is like Rogue One got 75% of the way basically done, and then they came in and done that. That's a little bit more par for the course for this big of a movie. Not 50% of the way. That's like unprecedented.
I was reading another article talking about how no one knows what's going to happen with the directing credit, because this has never really happened before.
Also interesting, too, people were theorizing that Lawrence Kasdan, the writer, could be bumped up. I found out, too, because of a Directors Guild rule, you actually can't have a writer who is attached to a project be bumped up to a full-time director capacity unless it's an emergency on a short-time basis. That was interesting to me. So did you want to talk about some of the names that have been thrown around?
Yes.
Deadline reported that Ron Howard is in the running to. Well, they considered him the front runner to helm the project. THR, in addition to mentioning Howard, mentioned Joe Johnston, who directed Jurassic Park 3, The Rocketeer, and Captain America: The First Avenger.
Which These are all movies in line with what I expect this to be.
I would agree. I think both of those names have zero chance in hell of actually happening.
Yeah.
Because why would they bother to get the only reason they would get a big name like that, especially Ron Howard, is for damage control from a PR standpoint. Mm-hmm. What they probably would like to do is get a crony they can manhandle, because that has appeared to be like this actually makes me question the production cycle of Force Awakens and exactly how much control Abrams had.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, I love Force Awakens through its flaws, but it's so cookie cutter of a Star Wars movie. That's one of the reasons I like Rogue One so much, is because Rogue One is very un-Star Wars when you think about the grand scheme of things, with focusing on the Jedi all the time and focusing on the Skywalkers and all of that stuff. It felt like they were actually trying something different. Force Awakens, I like it, but it is essentially a remake of A New Hope. I wonder how much that is a result of Abrams to be wanting to do more, and Kennedy and Kasdan and all these guys stepping in and like, no, we're going to go with 40-year-old, like the 40-year-old way we used to do things. And that really irritates me, because I think we were robbed of a potentially great movie in this firing.
I agree.
This
was the only Star Wars movie that coming up that I was really looking forward to, just because the cast involved, I know the crew, directors, everything, and now that all just went straight down the drain.
This was my most anticipated movie probably of the next 2 years. I was so devastated by this news because it was just like a dream project from a cast and crew perspective. Yeah. And maybe that's what torpedoed it. Maybe it had too many cooks in the kitchen.
I guess.
But it's just it's this movie will happen. What I think is going to happen, though, it was projected for May 2018. I think it's going to be pushed back into their December slot of 2018.
Probably.
Because I think there's just no way in hell, because the movie had entered a hiatus when there's a report too that Lord and Miller were blindsided by this as well, and it wasn't this, how they kind of make it out like, because they were basically fired. Their press releases are going to make it seem like it was a peaceful split, because that's what you do for those type of statements.
Right.
The story behind this movie is going to end up being more fascinating than the movie itself. It's one of those like Kojima leaving Konami situations.
This is a potential thing that might get its own documentary, because this is, like you said, this is just so unprecedented. This doesn't happen. And if this, I'm sorry, but because of this, I kind of hope the movie tanks.
They are inviting so much risk into their side of things, because if they had just let the movie wrap and then do what they did with Rogue One, basically bring in a guy, whoever they wanted, to kind of like re-edit the project at the 11th hour and make it the way they wanted it. At that stage, I think they would have had more of a leg of a stand on if the movie had not gone the way they wanted and they didn't end up being happy with it. At that point, they could have leveled more blame in the realm of Lord and Miller. If the movie is good, people are going to say, well, it could have been even better if you had just left the guys do their job. If the movie is bad, oh my God, they are going to get lit the fuck up.
She will no longer be in charge of Lucasfilm if this movie tanks.
The thing is that she's so...
Okay. So, you were just starting a thought.
I'll just bullshit something.
Okay,
Sorry for the technical difficulties, folks. Skype blows. That is our. Don't even bother asking us for that 1 to 5 star review, because you know where that's coming in. So we have to, like, every week our fucking vodcast or the Game of Thrones thing fucks up in some capacity now. It's ridiculous. We're like on a roll. Just the fact that Kathleen Kennedy, to me, could even potentially be in jeopardy at some point, like, it just staggering to me. Like, I hate that this is happening, and out of all projects for this to have happened it makes me so sad. It really does, because I have zero issue when we give Warner Brothers shit for going through like 30 different Flash directors since we've been discussing, this conversation even. It's because they've done it so many times is that it's annoying. I don't have a problem with people coming in and having a creative difference, because these are $250 million movies sometimes. You want to have people on the same fucking page. Getting 5 months into the filming of this movie and firing Lord and Miller because they were operating like Lord and Miller is fucking ridiculous. That is the equivalent of executive producing a Quentin Tarantino movie and being like, man, this movie would be great if it wasn't for all this goddamn dialogue. That is like... Now, I don't think the movie will automatically be bad. They have a lot going against it. But there are a lot of people still that are very talented still working on it. Mark Bernardin, I was watching him and Kevin Smith talk about the firing.
I was going to say, they had like an emergency meeting, didn't they?
But basically, it's such a big deal. He said...
I just imagine them like sliding down poles.
Since Donald Glover has started directing and writing more, and he's show running the Atlanta series, he threw him out as a potential because he's already hands-on with the project. He's clearly a talented guy. He threw him out there, which I would be pretty cool with. I hate that they got fired, but if you had to replace him with somebody, that would be a great PR move.
It's a great choice since he's already on the inside.
He's already on the inside. It's a great PR move, and it's a great creative choice because he's very talented. He's shown that he can direct, he can write, he can do everything.
All this is why it won't happen.
I think if I had to bet money on who they pick, it'll be Tony Gilroy again, because he was who they brought in to finish at Rogue One. Now, I know you didn't end up caring for it too much, but how, like, when I was saying, like, this doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be bad. Rogue One was similar. It wasn't as bad of a proposition because it wasn't axed like halfway through like this was. But some of the reshoots for Rogue One were like the best parts of the movie, like the Darth Vader scene. That was reshoots. The whole basically like third act was reshoots. But I don't know. This has dampened my enthusiasm for their entire fucking slate of films.
Yes, same here.
And I'm a massive fucking Star Wars fan. I got a fucking Star Wars poster hanging on my wall right there. This is heartbreaking to me personally, and I am incredibly irritated and pissed off by the situation. I'm hoping for the best, but man, this sucks. Like, there's just really nothing else to say.
I know you're hoping for the best, but I'm sorry, man. It is not going to work out.
It's not looking good. It's not.
Shit like this does not work out. And there hasn't even been any shit like this before.
Yeah.
So.
If this ends up, they're damned if they do and damned if they don't. Because if the movie's good, people will say it could have been better. And if it's bad, oh boy, Twitter is going to go to town on Lucasfilm, dude. Now, we had alluded to a couple times about Warner Brothers and Lord and Miller. Specifically about how The Flash has had director hell, basically.
That movie's never happening.
Now, I mentioned that this all happened when Han Solo was on hiatus, right?
Yes.
That's apparently a thing they're doing now with the Star Wars movies. This was what Kevin Smith and Bernard have been talking about on Fat Man on Batman. They basically say, at a certain point in the Star Wars films, they get to a point and they go into hiatus to kind of take a break and reevaluate what's working, what's not, and going forward. Apparently, during this hiatus, I think the writing might have kind of been on the wall for Lord and Miller on what they expected to have happen, because if this source is correct, according to the Wrap, the directing duo met with DC and Warner Brothers about returning to helm the Flash movie. If Warner Brothers is looking like a better option than Lucasfilm and Disney, shit has gone awry. Now, let's say magically, because first of all, if I was Warner Brothers, you back up every money truck you have at your fucking disposal. If Can you imagine the PR win on Warner Brothers side off the heels of Wonder Woman? If they can get the Golden Boys back for the Flash in something that they were writing treatments on and attached previously, oh my God, like Warner Brothers would.
And how perfect. Like you said, they're known for comedy.
It
would be perfect.
Ezra Miller's Flash is essentially Wally West named Barry Allen. He's goofy in the trailers you've seen. It would be fucking perfect.
It would be perfect.
Fucking perfect. So if Warner Brothers magically got them back, what would you say to that? For your because you and I both put on record we'll believe this movie actually fucking happens when we see a poster and a release date and shit actually happening. But good God, if I was Warner Brothers, I would make it happen.
Sign them the fuck up.
Money, no fucking option. The PR win that they would get from that would be worth every fucking cent.
It's too bad the movie's never going to happen, but they need to at least sign them up for the thing that will never happen.
I think if they sign them up, it will fucking happen because they'll fucking need it to happen, dude.
Right.
All right. Robert Zemeckis is the current frontrunner to direct the Flash project, which I don't know if maybe you're not. We have not been reporting on the Flash directors because why the fuck would we?
Yeah.
Just like the last month, they've
By
had
the time this podcast would come out, it would no longer be Robert Zemeckis. Now that we've said that,
I'll direct the Flash.
Right?
I'll do it. Sign me up for at least a week. I'll take a crack at it. All right, let's fucking switch topics. Something that's actually going to happen. Godzilla 2 has released their full cast and synopsis. And it looks like they may have learned their lesson about having Godzilla on screen for 3 minutes in the first time.
I have the exact opposite reaction.
Mothra, Rodan, and is it Ghidorah? Is that how you pronounce it?
I believe it's Ghidorah. They
are all in the synopsis for Godzilla 2. Basically going from hardly any monsters to monsters, Friday, basically.
Or they're just going to be in it for 5 minutes each, and that's it. Which is still more monster action than the first Godzilla, but...
I think this movie is going to be... I think it's going to be it's not going to be as good of a movie as Kong was. I think you're going to get that level of monsters again.
I don't know. I don't trust it.
You saw the after credits thing. This was a slight spoiler for the end credits. This cinematic universe I'm actually on board with, and they showed you what they want to do with it. It is going to be monsters, because that's their bread and butter right now. That is exactly what Kong was.
Here's what I don't get. How do you create your own kaiju universe when the 3 biggest ones you're going to do, you're going to throw out in one movie? What's the next thing you do?
No, that doesn't necessarily mean... Okay, let's see the way they word it. He collides with Mothra, Rodan, and his ultimate nemesis, the 3-headed King Ghidorah. You don't really know to what extent. I think, it could even be a thing where Ghidorah is teased as the main villain of the big Godzilla versus Kong type of thing. You never know. Where they do a thing kind of like BVS where they eventually team up to fight something else.
The thing that I found interesting also was they all vie for supremacy. It's not necessarily them against Godzilla. They're all fighting each other. So we still don't even know how much screen time Godzilla himself will have because Ghidorah, Rodan, and Mothra are too busy fighting each other.
I think we are going to get... I don't think you're going to get probably quite as much screen time as the monsters got in Kong Skull Island. But Kong Skull Island did well critically for a monster movie and commercially. I think that is going to be the vein that these movies go in. The director they added for it. Did you ever watch Trick or Treat?
No, I never heard of it.
It's like a little smorgasbord of a horror movie, which is actually pretty solid. I liked it when I saw it. Michael Dougherty, he's the director. The cast is fucking great. They are returning the one good part of the Godzilla movie, other than Bryan Cranston for 3 minutes on screen, was to me Ken Watanabe, just because he's a when has Ken Watanabe ever had a bad performance? Even his god awful dialogue they gave him, he actually did a good job delivering some of it in the movie. He's returning. They've added Kyle Chandler from Friday Night Lights, Vera Farmiga from The Conjuring, I believe that's where she's from. They added what was a really smart get for right now. They added Stranger Things' 11, Millie Bobby Brown.
That one kind of surprised me.
She's a smart get for them right now. Bradley Whitford from Cabin in the Woods, Thomas Middleditch from Silicon Valley, and our boy, Mr. Charles Dance. Which if you get 5 minutes of Charles Dance in this movie immediately bumps up like 2-letter grades for me personally because I just love Charles Dance that much. But yeah, after Kong, and I like the director choices, they are going off the wall. What they're doing with their directors, I think, is genius because they are getting geeks who happen to work in the industry. They're getting all these like obscure dudes, like Jordan Vogt Roberts, who did Kong Skull Island. They added the dude for Godzilla versus Kong. He's also in the same vein. They're getting geeks who are into this shit, who happen to work in the industry. I think that's very important, and it showed in Kong. Because Kong was actually handled, to me, like he actually gave a shit about the property. Which is not how Godzilla came across. Because Godzilla wasn't even in the fucking movie.
Yeah, Godzilla couldn't even be bothered to show up.
Yeah. I don't know. I shit on all the cinematic universes. I'm actually fully on board with this until they prove me wrong. Because I fucking love Kong that much. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how Godzilla 2 turns out.
Yeah,
That's all.
We'll see. It's not like I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, you're gonna fucking see it anyway. And hey, on the bright side of things, it's not like we could get less Godzilla than what we got before. Everything is gravy at this rate. So HBO decided to just like, hey, it's a it's a Wednesday afternoon. We'll just go ahead and break the internet for a couple of hours. Why the fuck not? They released a new trailer for Game of Thrones season 7. This is their second trailer. You honestly, I understand your reasoning behind it. You could have gotten away with watching it because it didn't show you jack shit. Honestly, the first trailer you saw probably showed more, just in the simple fact that it showed her dragons above the army marching in.
It showed more than I wanted, as awesome as it was. So I was like, I didn't even need to see that trailer. My ass is gonna be in the seat first episode.
Yeah. I don't know. So, I differed on it. I thought it was just fine because it's the exact same. It's just imagery of it. They're not actually spoiling plot points. Because like here's the thing. What have they shown us so far? Khaleesi's in fucking Westeros. We fucking knew that. She's got dragons. Yeah. We fucking knew that. Everything they've shown is shit we already knew.
I know, but I want to see it in the episode.
I know. I know. I
want the spectacle, Geoff.
I applaud your self-control because as soon as it hit the internet, I was like, oh, play.
We're actually not that far away. July 16th?
It's less than a month. It's about 3.5 weeks.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're looking at like 3 weeks.
Who's counting? Just...
yeah. So
yeah,
I can wait. I've waited this long.
I still was just like, play. So excited. 7 new episodes. Something else that happened during our E3 coverage was they released all of the runtimes. The last couple episodes of season 7 are like feature length. So fuck yes, dude.
One of them's like 84 minutes.
Yeah, it's the equivalent. It's 7 episodes. It's roughly like the screen time equivalent of what was it, like 8.5 or 9? So it's essentially the same type of runtime. They just have fewer episodes.
Yeah.
Season 6.
Shit.
I think season 6. I think the shortest one will be 80 minutes. I think they're all gonna run 80 to 90 minutes. I think they're all gonna be fucking movies. Which, like, oh my god, 6 Game of Thrones movies in a row to finish it out. Could you fucking imagine, dude?
I know. It's gonna be it's all just gonna be batshit, the whole thing. And I'm fine with that.
Oh my god, I need it now. HBO also kind of shook up the industry a little bit this week when they announced that they are in talks with Damon Linedelof to helm a Watchmen TV series, which it will presumably be a mini-series just because of the way Watchmen is constructed as a story.
Right.
Lindelof, if those are unaware, he just wrapped up work. He was the showrunner. I believe he was the showrunner. If he wasn't the showrunner, he was one of the main writers for The Leftovers. Okay. He wrote Prometheus. He wrote. He was one of the main writers behind Lost. I'm trying to think of what else he's in. Those are like his main credits.
So far, Prometheus is the only thing I care about. And I'm one of 2 people that care about.
What I can't imagine who the other person would be. What do you think about HBO tackling I was about to say, what do you think about HBO tackling an HBO miniseries? Like, great, behind the scenes.
Pretty unheard of.
Yeah. Sunday, HBO's HBO.
That's how black holes are formed.
What's sad is I would actually watch HBO's show of HBO because I love HBO so much. It's like HBOception. What do you think about this?
Are they doing the same plot line?
From what I can gather, yes. They are basically going to be doing the story. It's just given the runtime of a miniseries, which is honestly what it should have been in the first place. You and I both really, really liked Snyder's movie. I liked the movie, I'm sorry, better than the comic just because of how stupid the fucking ending is.
I was going to say, they're going to change that. You know that, right? Because you and I are the only ones that like the ending.
To appease comic fans, they were going to introduce the fucking squid, and they're going to lose me in episode 8 or whatever. But I am intrigued by the concept of them actually having the proper runtime. Let's face it, it's fucking HBO. It's going to have a great cast. They're going to have great directors. I think it's going to be really solid.
Can you imagine how much blue dong is going to be in your face on HBO?
They're gonna bring in the they bring in some Game of Thrones alums,
right?
Like special nudity GOT consultant, blah blah blah. Snyder is no longer attached to this project. While I guess he was in early development stages when they've been talking about this for a few years. I actually think it's interesting because while I really liked Snyder's movie based on Watchmen, the action focus, while it really worked for the movie for me, and I think it made it a better overall movie for me, it's really not what that story is about. It's a character-driven thing. So I think having more time.
Miniseries is a better vehicle.
Miniseries is a better vehicle.
When it originally came out, miniseries was not the thing like it is now. That's the go-to for a lot of different stories now, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it makes much more sense. People really like to hate on Watchmen. The fact that they were able to cut down that story and still make it make sense in that film to me, and even improve it in certain areas to you and I think it was really impressive.
I think it was really well done for what it is.
Is it
my favorite movie? No, I've seen far worse movies.
Yeah,
I've seen better movies, but I still like it.
That thing could have gone off the rails at so many instances.
Oh, I know.
And
for instance, they could have had a giant squid.
And certain parts of it are fucking brilliant. Like the Dr. Manhattan origin story is like one of the best short films I've ever seen. When they cut to just his origin for like 5 minutes, it's beautifully done. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see what they would do with it. And our last story of the week for the news. Sherlock creators and Doctor Who architects Mark Gatiss, Stephen Moffat are what it looks like leaving Sherlock, which has kind of been set in stone for a while just because of how ridiculous having a shooting time frame available for both Martin Freeman and Cumberbatch.
Right.
That's why it takes them like 5 years to get a single movie done because they just can't find the time. It looks like they are, per Variety, in talks to helm a Dracula miniseries, which will consist of multiple seasons of basically feature-length episodes, essentially like Sherlock, just with Dracula. What is your interest level in that project, if it came to be?
I gotta say, when you and I theorized about what they might go to next, Dracula was not in my list. But fuck, I'll watch it.
Just because those two guys,
yeah.
Doctor Who and Sherlock, have been so good for the most part under them.
That's all I needed to hear.
That's
was
all you need.
Them.
I'm not a big.
Could you imagine the nightmares that Stephen Moffat has given us, and he's tackling Dracula?
Statues and fucking gas masks and the dark and like all
Sharpies always within arm's reach.
All of these abstract things he has made you afraid of, and you give him fucking vampires. It's potentially very interesting. I agree. I was a little thrown for a loop by it, but I thought it was a pleasant surprise. I think it could be very, very cool to see what they do with it. And it's also, it's like he what is he best known for with Doctor Who is horror concepts when you get right down to it. Like especially before he took over as showrunner, like all of his episodes for the most part, you could consider like Silence in the Library, with and then the gas mask one. I forget, was it Dr. Dances? I think that was the name of one of those.
That's the part 2.
Yeah, that people know if they're
part 1. Why can't I remember what part 1 is? Are you my mummy? Yeah.
I don't even like vampires. I'm not a big Dracula guy, but I would be 100% on board just because of Gatiss and Moffat.
Oh yes.
And we're going to spend just a few minutes talking about our discussion. I think one of the reasons I picked this discussion is I think it can be a little bit of a quicker one that we get through, just because we didn't exactly prepare for it, as we typically are not to do with this show. But I knew our news was going to be a lot to get through, specifically because of the Han Solo thing and because we took a couple of weeks off because of E3. But the topic we picked was that basically, looking back over the last few weeks at the state of entertainment news, and when you just look at like the headlines of what's been dominating these news outlets, and it's fucking Wonder Woman, and it's Transformers that's upcoming, and Han Solo loses 2 directors, and it's like the world's come to an end. And it's been a topic we've been kind of thinking about for a while. When did geek culture become pop culture? And that's gonna be what we're gonna be discussing for a few minutes. So Ron, when I ask you that question, what is the first thing that pops to your mind about what you'd like to talk about?
About when it happened, or just what's crazy that it is?
This is just. Tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. Doesn't matter. It's just free form. I didn't make any notes. It's just first thing that comes to your mind.
First thing that pops into my head when I think about this topic is Iron Man. I think that's when everything. I mean, it was already shifting. I think Iron Man shifted it into pop culture.
Yeah,
I think that's when it was cool. I think that was when it was finally cool to be.
I think the importance behind it too is that while Batman Begins, you can make a
case.
You can make the difference is Iron Man is perfectly accessible whether you're 8 or if you're 80, because It is more of like an all ages type of affair. It's not kiddie, but it works for everyone in a way that to where Batman Begins is accessible. I don't think it is as accessible because it is basically a crime film that happens to star Batman.
Right.
And that was how Nolan got the gig, basically. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would agree with Iron Man. I think it was pretty paramount.
I think it was already shifting with movies and stuff we've been having before and the popularity of them. But I think it was finally cool to be a nerd when Iron Man hit silver screen. Who would you have ever guessed we'd ever get an Iron Man movie out of all things?
And it'd be fucking great.
And it'd be one of the best movies that's probably been made. Like, yeah. I have no words for Iron Man. I think it changed everything.
You can literally say it was universe building. It was. Yes. I'll go a little bit more retro about it. Okay. We mentioned Adam West. I think Batman 66 was actually very important for comic books.
It was very important for comic books, but I stopped getting wedgies around the time Iron Man came out.
That's true. But just the way that I kind of look at it too, because like they didn't like properly convey what Batman is from like the comics page, but it brought it into like public awareness.
It brought it into public awareness. It brought it into the public light, and people started buying comics. They heard of Batman, they saw the comic book, and they started picking up Batman comics.
And what's very important to think about too is that the way that you could say like Batman '89 and Batman the Animated Series like shaped you and me and like our friend Philip per se, just because of our age range.
Right.
A lot of the people that would go on to develop Iron Man and Batman Begins, all of these developer teams of writers and directors and actors and actresses and everyone behind the scenes grew up largely if you'd say like what introduced them to all of these properties was potentially Batman 66, depending on how old they are.
Right.
Another one that kind of came to in my mind that I think when we did our history of comic book adaptations, I think it's actually one that we didn't spend enough time talking about, but Richard Donner's Superman proved that while it's not like a great movie to me, or that it's, super accurate, but it proved that they could work.
Yeah.
It proved that you could make a movie that starred a superhero that was decent.
Yes.
Because up until that point, it hadn't really been proven yet. It was more of a joke. They made it, and it wasn't a joke.
Yes. One of them that pops out to me because of a guy that I went to college with, because I didn't go to like one of the big schools around here. I went to Northeastern State, and they primarily market towards people wanting their degree, but they have their job, they have their kids and all that. So I was actually one of the youngest people in the class. But one that jumps out to me also is Transformers, the first one, the good one. The one that was brought down by the sequels, which is a travesty because it actually was kind of cool. And it did a lot because of reports and things we had to write. People knew I worked at a movie theater. People knew what I did in the job, like in the class, for a job. And we would obviously talk about movies a lot. And when Transformers came out, one guy in particular, a lot of people were surprised about it, but one guy in particular was just stunned at how he expected a kid's movie walking in. But Transformers and a lot of just about everything in the MCU, DC, not as much lately, but, like what Sony and Fox and everything is doing now is they're aiming more at an experience everyone can get into. And that was something that at the time, it was happening before Transformers, but I think Transformers was the first AAA thing to really blow that up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they tried it with like G.I. Joe, and it just didn't connect.
It didn't connect, but Transformers was a big enough draw. Even if you didn't know anything about Transformers, you knew names. You knew Michael Bay. You heard of Transformers, you knew the toys, you saw the trailers, it had comedy, it had action, it had a lot of stuff blowing up real nice, and it was a crowd pleaser, which is exactly what it did. That's why they're still making those god-awful movies. It's a crowd pleaser, but I think it was one of the keystones to pop culture being geek culture, because it made people realize that it's accessible and you don't have to be into it. It doesn't have to be your jam. You know what I mean? I don't quite know how to get across what I'm saying. But.
On the curtails of that, Abrams' first Star Trek movie to me kind of accomplished the same type of thing, because when you think about, I think the first Abrams Star Trek movie,
work of art.
The way that it works in pleasing both the most diehard of fans, while simultaneously totally working for someone who never watched a single episode in their life. To me, the first Star Trek movie by Abrams is the single best reboot.
Yeah,
because it is a reboot.
It's parallel,
but it's not really at the same time. Like it doesn't even really have its own classification because of how cleverly they went about making it work. It works for everybody, and it was a great fucking movie that happened to star Star Trek characters.
Right.
And it kind of made Star Trek cool.
If you take that plot and take anything Star Trek out of it, take the names out, the name of the ship, put them on a different spaceship, anything else, like it still works. It just happens to carry the Star Trek name.
Yeah.
It was fantastically done, that movie. And that I don't really think I can call myself a Star Wars fan. I just always liked Star Wars better than Star Trek. Star Trek bored me. I was just so bored as a kid watching Star Trek. I don't care what series it was. I was just not happy watching it. And Abrams' Star Trek movie made me a Trekkie over a Star Wars person, because it was finally what I wanted out of Star Trek.
I have a Star Wars poster, as I said earlier, on my wall. I have grown up with it. It's like the other than Batman, it's like the earliest thing I can even remember. I like the Abrams and Justin Lin movies better than anything Star Wars has done since Return of the Jedi. I think it is just straight up better fucking movies than what Star Wars has been doing. It's because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the property is. They're just great fucking movies.
Yeah. They've done very well.
Yeah, I'm. Did you get a chance to watch Beyond yet?
Not yet.
You guys really should. It's a lot of fun.
I think it's on. It's supposed to be hitting Hulu this month.
I think it's already on there. I'm trying to think just like off the top of my head. I think you could kind of argue because of its point in time, The Matrix made sci-fi popular all of a sudden.
Yes.
Because if you think about like the grand scheme of things from the 90s, you don't really think science fiction. You think indie films. You think your Quentin Tarantino's and your Kevin Smiths and that ilk. And then when The Matrix came out, The Matrix is still being copied and aped today.
Yeah.
What, going on 20 years later?
Yeah, sci-fi had its run like the 70s and 80s, and then about mid to late 80s that started going away. And then, yeah, I think The Matrix brought it back in a really big way.
Yeah. Anything else? I'm trying to think. If you want to talk TV, like what would you say was the stepping stone from making comic book television? Because honestly, the television side of things has been much more recent to develop than...
I think the MCU as a whole, because as Mark Bernardin said, each movie is ran like it's an episode to a TV series, and Feige is the showrunner. And I think people saw that and said, we can kind of do the same thing on the small screen. So you get, Preacher, and you get all the comic book stuff just hitting left and right, even obscure stuff just hitting left and right.
That's
my take on it.
We don't like it in its current state, but I do also think because of its popularity, Walking Dead was actually pretty important for getting stuff like Preacher off the bat. Like we don't like the direction they took it as far as making it like never ending, but it did get a lot of shit greenlit that otherwise would have never had a chance in hell. Preacher would not be on the air right now if it wasn't for Walking Dead. It's just a simple fact.
I had something, and then we shifted to TV. What was it? Oh, I think one thing that made like alien movies and stuff like that. The fuck is going on my phone? I just randomly started playing a song. I think one thing that made like alien invasion movies and all that stuff kind of popular and not just kind of okay. I mean, I guess I'll go see that, but it's gonna be one of the dumbest things I ever saw. I think Independence Day kind of blew that up in a big way.
It was one of those kind of introducing like a science fiction related blockbuster when typically they were science fiction up until you had those like big hits like that. It was more relegated to the way that Star Trek didn't work for you because it was oriented towards I'm trying to think of like the best way to put it, kind of like things that are there to make you think more than they're there to entertain you.
Yes.
And then stuff like Independence Day was kind of trying to branch out that science fiction could work on that realm while also being popcorn movies as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care what people think of it now. Independence Day hits every genre. It's sci-fi, it's action, it's drama, it's comedy. I fucking love that movie on just about every level. And after that, you started getting a slew of all kinds of shit coming out. And there's still a lot of elements that a lot of those type movies mimic from it now, just like everything mimicked Blade Runner and everything mimics Matrix now. You don't get an alien invasion movie without seeing Independence Day in it somewhere.
I have a really good one that is incredibly poignant to you and me because you do not get Game of Thrones if Peter
Were you just looking at your shelf?
I actually was. I was looking through my shelf to try and brainstorm. You do not get Game of Thrones if Peter Jackson doesn't make 3 incredibly good Lord of the Rings movies that had every reason. You want to talk about a daunting fucking project. make 3 fully budgeted Lord of the Rings films back to back to back. That's astonishing what he pulled off in those movies. Like, those movies should have not worked. They should have been impossible to pull off. I don't even know to this day how they even got greenlit for that on that scale.
Yeah.
And they fucking crushed those movies for what they had working.
Yeah, what they did was unheard of with those movies. So, yeah, you bring an interesting point. The fact that even got greenlit, especially at the time, like in the era, it's something to think about. Yeah.
It's astonishing. It's not something you really think about because you just accept Lord of the Rings as existing because it's so omnipresent, especially for the next few years. Shit, it was so fucking successful. We got 3 Hobbit movies off of a single book.
Yeah.
Like, they went that hog wild with those properties, and they made fantasy cool. Like, because of how well he portrayed the world, and because of how good the actors were, they made fucking high fantasy cool.
Yeah, they went out of their way. Like, some of the people in there may not have been necessarily known, but they didn't go for known. They went for actually casting the character, which I always appreciate. I'm trying to figure out a way to work the Mummy in. How many adventure movies do you see because of the Mummy?
Well, I think you could draw the Mummy right back to Indiana Jones. Because what Raiders of the Lost Ark did was kind of reestablish like the pulp serial idea that could still work when that hadn't really been touched since like the 30s.
Pretty much. The Brendan Fraser Mummy movie, Stephen Sommers. It looks, it feels, it watches like, and the music even sounds like an Indiana Jones movie. What?
How the hell have they not signed him up for Uncharted yet? Like, he'd be so great for that.
I know.
Because Brendan Fraser just basically is Nathan Drake in those movies. When you think about it, he
basically is. He's even dressed kind of like him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That's another movie that's not happening, by the way. But yeah.
Well, you know what movie is also not happening? Anything in the Dark Universe because of the new Mummy. Which, by the way, I want to quickly, while you were talking about how awesome was that Brendan Fraser Instagram thing? Where he was just like...
You know what was even better than that? Was the meme that was like, he fucking posted it.
I love it. Like, made my year.
Oh, I love it.
I'm going to just really quickly run through my shelf again to see if there's anything that's coming to my mind. You want to know, in the vein of making science fiction work outside of its typical realms of what you consider, Predator is like a sci-fi action horror movie. Like, it fits into like every genre you can think of too.
Yeah.
And it works on every fucking level. Because the Predator doesn't even show up till like 45 minutes in the movie. It's just like an action
that first 45 minutes is riveting.
And it's not bad. It's fucking genius.
Yeah, it's another one that's done very well. I'm trying to think of something else in TV that I wanted to pin down. See, I have a wall between me and my shelf.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's gonna be the last thing I'll mention. Yeah, is Predator.
Yeah, I don't really know. It's getting too late at night for me to really.
Yeah, I think we've done a good job off the top of our head making this actually kind of work. Well, you've been off the top of your head. I've been cheating for the last like 20 minutes, but whatever.
Yeah, well, I don't have the entire internet in front of me, but yeah. No, I think that's pretty good, especially since we're over time. But
yeah, this is not as over time as we have been the last few episodes. So I think we'll be fine. But yeah, if you would like to check us out more, please like and subscribe. We also have Facebook and Twitter links in the description below. We really don't spam your feeds. I promise. It's mostly just to keep you up to date when we do post stuff. Which, by the way, we have a slew of Tomb Raider vids on the way. Yes. What was it? +7, Part 7 just went live. That's available for your viewing pleasure.
This will probably go up on Thursday, so that will mean tomorrow, Friday, would be +8.
Yeah, and we're going to be recording more. We're back in the swing of things. I forgot how much fun it is to record Let's Plays. It's a fucking blast.
God, I love
Even
it.
with
It's
that
my favorite
alcohol,
thing we do.
Even without alcohol, it was fucking great. which is saying something for our quality of entertainment.
Right.
And please share us out. We really appreciate that.
Real quick before we sign off, where can the good folks find you since you're out and about on the internet now?
If you would like to follow me and support me, you can just basically pay attention to comicbookresources.com or cbr.com. I'm a part-time writer for them. So if you just follow the main page, you'll see my articles. I roughly have like about 2 a day on average. So I would really appreciate your clicks, America. More clicks, more precious clicks. Man, I'm excited for Part 9 of Tomb Raider to hit the interwebs.
Right.
That was the good one, right? Like the one diving
Part
in the rock.
9.
Part
Yes.
9. Yeah.
Plus 9.
Yep. Plus 9. All right. I'm Geoff.
I'm Ron.
We will see you guys next time. I make you laugh every time I'm doing the same thing.
Just